Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Ella, and in today's video I am going to explain the 12 astrological houses to you. The astrological natal chart is split up into 12 sections, just like what a watch's clock face has 12 separate sections as according to the hours. Each little pie chart section of this chart represents a specific sector of a person's life. It is said that all facets and aspects of life can be divided into these 12 astrological houses. So everything that is part of a human's life is included within these 12 astrological houses. The zodiac sign that the house is placed in explains to you the archetype through which that specific sector of that human's life will be played through. So in essence, the 12 zodiac signs are the 12 archetypes through which a human being can express themselves. The 12 houses are the 12 sections of life through which the human being uses this archetype to express themselves. Now, the planets will all be allocated in different sections within these 12 houses, obviously depending on the date, time, and place of birth of the individual. Some houses might have more planets than others, which can indicate a concentration of energy in one sector of a person's life. Some houses might be empty, which can indicate that not that much energy needs to be applied to this sector of a person's life. The way that these planets are distributed within the natal chart and through these 12 houses is completely unique for each and every individual. However, this gives you a very clear map as to where the focus of the person's life should be. In order to figure out exactly which planets are allocated in which house, you do need a person's accurate birth time. Without the birth time, you can't calculate which houses these planets are in. If you do not have a person's birth time, you will not be reading their astrological houses. You will merely be reading the planets and the signs that they are in, as well as the aspects between these planets. However, if you don't have a birth time, you cannot calculate the rising, which is the ascendant, as well as the houses that the planets are allocated in. This is why, in order to get a complete, full, comprehensive understanding of an individual and their natal chart, it is vital that you do have their birth time. However, you can still gain insight into their life and their personality. If you don't have their birth time, you will then just not read the astrological houses as well as the rising. Okay, so I'm going to explain to you what each of these 12 houses represents. So the first house. The first house basically starts at the point of the rising. This is the person's ascendant sign. The first house basically represents how other people see you. The first house represents what other people see when they see you. So the way that you see yourself and the way that you view yourself is often different from how other people view you. The first house represents that initial image people get when they deal with you. So this represents your physical appearance. This represents your body, your facial features, as well as the energy you present to people when they engage with you. It's also the energy that you put out into the world. Generally, the first impression that you give to somebody will be that of your first house sign and not of your sun sign. Your overall identity is indicated by the first house and basically what you present to the world. The first house is ruled by Aries. The second house is ruled by Taurus, and the second house represents money. It represents your ability to make money in this life and your ability to acquire and gain an income. Second house also represents how much material possessions you have and how many physical objects you possess within your life. If you're a person who has a lot of money and who is surrounded by a lot of stuff, you'll likely have a very well aspected second house. What is important to you and what you also value is indicated by the second house. So if there is something that is important to you and you feel like having this thing in your life makes you happy, this will usually be shown to you by your second house. The things you generally don't want to lose, the things you tend to hold on to and you tend to accumulate and cling on to, is indicated by the second house. A person's work ethic and the way they approach, the way they go about making and acquiring their money is also generally indicated by the second house. The third house is the house of Gemini, and this is the house that represents a person's ability to communicate. The third house also represents a person's mind and where majority of their mental focus goes to. The way you think and the way your thought processes work is generally indicated through the third house. How sociable and how outgoing you are, as well as how keen you are to engage with other people, will also be indicated through your third house. Because the third house is the house of Gemini, the third house will also indicate your relationship with your siblings. The way that you converse and engage with other people, as well as how you behave socially, is usually indicated through a person's third house. The fourth house is the house of Cancer, and this is the house that represents your home life as well as your early childhood life. The fourth house represents your initial roots and where you come from, what you were exposed to and what you were taught when you were young. The way that you process your emotions and deal with your emotions can also be indicated through the fourth house, as well as the way you deal with family members. Any kind of foundations and security that you have in your life will also be indicated through the fourth house. And generally your relationship with your parents, but more specifically your relationship with your mother, will be shown to you through your fourth house. People who have very well aspected fourth houses generally have very, very happy, harmonious relationships with their family. Your relationship with females and women is also indicated to you through your fourth house. The fifth house is the house that is ruled by Leo, and the fifth house represents romance, creativity, and creative expression. The fifth house is also the house of children, the house of love, and the house of playfulness. So your fifth house is basically your house of joy, and it shows you what makes you happy. The way you play and the way you like to create is usually shown to you through your fifth house. The fifth house also rules self-expression as well as fertility. So the way that you generally express yourself to other people, as well as your capability to have children and how fertile you are, will be indicated through the fifth house. The sixth house is the house of Virgo, and the sixth house indicates your health, your daily routine, as well as your ability to serve others and the world. Your willingness to be selfless and your willingness to give to others is generally shown through the sixth house. How you look after your health, whether you eat healthy and whether you exercise regularly, will also be indicated through the sixth house. The sixth house also governs over pets and animals, and the sixth house governs over nature. The way you go about your daily routine and the way you approach bringing value to the world around you and in the life of others will be indicated through your sixth house. Your willingness to work hard for no reward, but for the greater good, will also be shown here. The seventh house is the house of Libra, and this is the house of relationships. Your marriage, as well as your partnerships that include business partnerships or whatever the case may be, this will be indicated to you through your seventh house. So your ability to cooperate and to see eye to eye with others and to consider the needs of others will be indicated here. The seventh house rules over marriage, so whether you will be getting married or not will be shown here, as well as just your ability to share your life with others. The eighth house is the house of Scorpio, and the eighth house represents sexual connections, as well as merging yourself with another. The 8th house represents intimacy, and it represents sharing what you have with others based off this intimacy. So the 8th house is a little bit similar to the 7th house, but it is different in a sense where the 8th house represents intimate connections, whereas the 7th house merely represents partnerships. By partnerships, this can also mean business partnerships or marriage partnerships. Not all marriages are intimate. The 8th house also represents other people's assets as well as loans and investments. So anything that comes to you in your life through other people, as well as how much debt you make in this life, will be shown through the 8th house. The 8th house also represents life mysteries. It represents things that are unseen, things that we're not aware of. So a lot of your more taboo kind of topics are generally represented by the 8th house. The 8th house also represents death. It represents birth and transformation. The 8th house is quite a mysterious house in astrology. The 9th house is ruled by Sagittarius, and the 9th house represents your higher mind. The 9th house governs over topics such as travel, religion, philosophy, foreign lands, and foreign cultures. Whether you will travel and meet other people and whether you will enroll in higher education is generally shown through your 9th house. Your learning capacity and your ability to retain information is also shown here. The 9th house also represents cultures and foreign lands, so your ability to get along with different cultures and people and places that are foreign to you will also be indicated through the 9th house. Your connection to religion, philosophy, as well as your sense of spirituality is also governed by this house. What you believe to be your ultimate truth when it comes to your spirituality or your religion will be indicated through your 9th house. The 10th house is the house of Capricorn, and the 10th house represents your career, how ambitious you are, as well as your social standing and your social reputation. The goals that you have for the long term and the things that you would like to achieve within your life will be indicated through the 10th house. Your public image, your status, and your public reputation is also indicated here. So the way that the public sees you is indicated through the 10th house. The 10th house also governs over authority. So this can include authority figures in your life. This can also include things such as law, politics, and any kind of limiting figures, as well as your father or the male influence in your life that raised you. Because the 10th house is opposite the 4th house, which generally represents the mother and the connection to the mother, the 10th house usually represents the connection to the father. Because the mother usually has a more loving, nurturing quality to her, which goes along with the 4th house, a father generally has a more stern, authoritative quality to him, which is represented by the 10th house. People who are famous generally have a very strong 10th house because, like I said, this is the house that represents your public image and how the public perceive you. The 11th house is the house of Aquarius, and this is the house that represents your friends, how you involve and enroll yourself in your community, as well as your capacity for social awareness. The 11th house also represents the future, as well as your future, and this is also the house that governs over technology. How much you include yourself with other people in the world around you is usually shown to you with your 11th house. People with a very well aspected 11th house possess a lot of humanitarian qualities to them, where they do a lot for others and they have a very strong sense of social awareness and they seek out social equality. The 12th house is the house of Pisces, and this is the house that rules over our subconscious mind. This house also represents endings as well as the afterlife and the spiritual realm. The 12th house is a very secluded, solitary house, so people who have a very strongly aspect to 12th house are people who tend to live their life in isolation. They prefer to be alone most of the time. The reason for this is because these are people who are generally quite spiritually aware people, because they are more connected to and they are more aware of the spiritual realm and the spiritual world, because this is what the 12th house represents. Anything that is hidden within your subconscious mind, anything that you're not really aware of, will be indicated to you through your 12th house. So any kinds of limiting thoughts or limiting beliefs that you might have will also be shown to you here. What you need to do in order to work through your more negative subconscious habits that you have will be shown to you through your 12th house. Okay, so this is my video on the 12 astrological houses. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Let me know in the comments what you thought of this video. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and check out the link below to my Patreon if you'd like to become one of my patrons and see what that is all about. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time.